Hey, it's Celeste, and I'm here for my Saturday Bookish chat. Like, legit, sometimes I have a hard time keeping track of what day it is. But it's Saturday, and here I am. So I thought I would take a minute to talk about the things that I'm reading. Right now, I'm currently only reading 4 things, right? Oh, I snapped all my nails off yesterday. I had broken a couple of them off, and then I was like, you know what, it's time to do another set. And so I like to give my nails like a day or two to like just live. Anyway, okay, so this week I worked like the first half of the week, and then I was at the beach yesterday and the day before. So Thursday and Friday we were at the beach. I'm a little like sunburnt. Yeah, that happens when you're fair. I was using sunscreen. I wore sunglasses. I wore a hat. I stayed in the shade. But what can you do? When you're like super fair, it's kind of a thing that'll happen really easily. So, but like only in like certain places. Like I have a little sun elsewhere, but it's like not, not a big deal. Like I have a little bit, but it's not, my shoulders and like the top of my back, those are like the not so great places. Anyway, so the 4 things that I'm reading right now, as per usual, still working on the Well of Ascension. I don't think I read any of it this week, so I really need to like buckle down and read some of it this week, like really make some more progress. For my book club, I say my book club, for the Book Bitch Literary Society, I am reading The Guncle by Stephen Rowley. And here, let me pull it up so that you guys can see the cover. If I can click it on. Show you guys the cover. Okay, you guys are familiar with it, right? So we're reading The Guncle this month. And I'm digging this cover a little bit. Like, it's sassy, it's cute. I haven't read from him before, so I don't know much. And honestly, I'm only in the first like 10 pages, so I really even can't tell you much about it. I started it. That was it. So and as you can see, I'm reading that Kindle version. Okay, I'm also still in Razorblade Tears. Made a little bit of progress this week, but again, this is one that I need to kind of focus on. I didn't take it to the beach with me or anything. And then the book that I read on the beach, I started and read like a third of, The Happy Ever After Playlist by Abby Jimenez. It is number 2 in a companion series, but, and I read The Friend Zone, which is the first book of that, a while back. But, sometimes with these companion series, like, there are spoilers, but it's not like, you don't have to remember all the nitty-gritty details of the first book to get into the second book. And I'm mad at myself for sitting on this book for so long, because it's good, it's cute, like it's what I wanted for like a beachy read. And so like this is the one that I'll probably like read a little bit this afternoon. So yeah, those are the 4 things that I'm reading. I'm gonna do my best to not read anything else, like start anything else until I finish at least 1 or 2 of these things, because I am bad. Like there's some people, like my husband, for example, who will only read 1 book at a time. And that's cool, like if it, like there's less work to be done as far as like keeping them differentiated in your head and stuff like that. But what I have found whenever I was like that is that if the book that I was reading was not great, or if it didn't stick with my mood, then I did not get as much read. So like in my Goodreads, I have shelves, like, how people have shelves or like, this is my mystery thriller shelf and this is my romance shelf or whatever. I have shelves that are based on like years. And if you go back and look at the years where I only read one book at a time, those years have dramatically fewer books completed that year than other times, because I am very much a mood reader. I've learned that about myself. I'm very much a mood reader. So like, a little backstory. I am an English teacher. I studied English in college for my bachelor's degree. I also have a master's degree in English with an emphasis in writing. And so like all those years of like concentrating on English, well, yeah, you're going to take lit classes. So they're going to be like, you got to read this and then you got to write a paper and blah, blah, blah. Right. So, and I struggled sometimes because I had to read the book. And what I learned is it's less about being told that I had to read something and more about the moods that I would be in. So like if I have to read something and it fits a certain mood, but that's not the mood I am in that part of the semester, like I really struggled. And so now that I'm done with school. I'm not going to go for a PhD. Just, breaking news. I'm not going for a PhD. For one, if I were to go for a PhD, I would have to move because I live in a rural area, and the college that's closest to me, I've used it for both my bachelor's and my master's degree. So I have to use another different college to get a PhD, right? You can't use one college for all of your degrees. And I have zero interest in moving. Like, I adore living in this house that I'm living in. This is the house that I grew up in. And yeah, like, I don't see myself moving to the next closest place, which would be probably like Houston. And that's even then if the colleges there accepted me for those programs, right? Like, for like a PhD in English, like, and yeah, and at the age I'm at now, it's more, that would be like a sort of vanity thing more than like a useful career thing, because I'm quite happy teaching high school English. Like, and you don't have to have a PhD to teach high school English in Texas. Anyway, so, getting off track there. So anyway, now that I'm done with school, right? Like being a student in school, like I'm cool with being like a teacher or professor or whatever in school. I can read what I want. And no one really tells me what to read. Like every now and then I'll be like, I think I'm going to teach this novel, and I'll read it. And a lot of times it's rereading it for me because I've read a lot of the kinds of novels that you would teach in some of the courses that I have available to me to teach. Anyway, and so I generally can read whatever the heck I want. So in reading what I want, what I have found is I do a better job if I read according to my mood, and I do a better job if I give myself options and I don't restrict myself with like these rules, like you have to read this one book start to finish before you can read the next. And to some people it's like, and in my life, not just like online, have been like, well, how do you keep them straight in your head? Well, I think it's a bit of practice in the sense that once you do it, maybe it's hard at first and then you get used to it and you figure yourself out. And then B, use different genres, right? Like, I don't read nonfiction in the same way that I read fiction. And then within fiction, I don't read mystery thrillers in the same way that I would read a contemporary or a romance or what have you, okay? So, what started me is, I think it was back in like 2010 or 2009, like a while back, I was reading Columbine, actually, by Dave Cullen, which is about the school shooting at Columbine High School. And there were parts of it that were really heavy. Because, you're talking about death, you're talking about like domestic terrorism, you're talking about like mental illness and just really, and then gun violence, and it was just really heavy, really dark, really like sad. And a lot of times I read before going to bed. So like what I found is like, hey, if I'm reading something that's like that dark and depressing and upsetting right before I go to bed, guess what? you're gonna have some bad dreams. Or at least I was kind of having like issues like falling asleep, issues like staying asleep, having some uncomfortable like thoughts and dreams and whatever. So I would read some of that, and then before going to sleep, I read a bit of like a comedy nonfiction. It was one of Mindy Kaling's first books. She wrote like 2 books, and now she's written a whole bunch of other stuff too, and TV shows and stuff, but back then. And it sort of got me going. So when I would read something that was kind of harder hitting, I could read a romance or read a comedy or something that would kind of like even it out. And so, and also Columbine was nonfiction, and then I would read fiction. So what I have found is that as long as I keep things in different genres, it's not a big deal. So like, for example, so I'm reading Fort, right? Okay, so The Well of Ascension, high fantasy. It's in its own world. So I generally don't get like things that are specific to this world. I don't get it confused with other things because it's a very, Brandon Sanderson is a very niche kind of like reading experience, right? And then I have, like, I'm also reading Razorblade Tears. Razorblade Tears, there's a bit of a mystery, like who killed these people, and there's a bit of like excitement or whatever. And it's based in like now, like the world we live in. So I'm just not going to get these two mixed up in my head when I jump from one to the other. Like, it's really, my brain goes, okay, we're going to read something else. And then, like, the Happy Ever After playlist, well, Razorblade Tears is taking place in Virginia. This is taking place in California. So it's like, even though it's in the same world, and like, the writing styles are different, and this is not dark and scary. I mean, I'm not saying that romance doesn't have, like, darker parts, because you got to have the lows to appreciate the highs, right? But it's not dealing with murder. That's not a spoiler, but it's not dealing with murder, right? So I don't get those confused. And I'm certainly not going to get this confused with Brandon Sanderson because, again, like that high fantasy world. Now, like the Guncle, I'm just, after, like, even though I think it's in California. I don't know, I'm at the beginning of it. Again, I don't get, it's not a romance. This is like a contemporary, like, book. So, I don't know, sorry. So my brain is just like, okay, cool. Okay, cool. Okay, cool. Like, can change those lanes. So I feel like some of it's practice and some of it's like, they're very different from each other. So I don't get them confused. But yeah, so that's, I guess that's, it's not that it's been a slow or a boring week or whatever. It's just that, I don't know, I'm just kind of trucking. I was worried about getting slumpy, but I'm less worried about that. And I think that is because I have, like, I haven't been reading like 5-star books. Like, I don't know if any of these that I'm reading are going to end up being like a 5-star choice, but like I've read some that I've rated like 2 and 3 and what have you. So I need a good book. I need a good book to pop up in my life. So that's what's going on with that. Also, for the month of June, I didn't set a TBR. I'm working my way through my book of the month books, and I'm working my way through the Book Bitch Summer Bingo card, which I'll have to show it to you guys maybe next week. I have the card, and I'm aware of what's on the card because I put it together, because I am the, what is my title? I'm the scribe of the Book Bitch Literary Society, and that sort of organically grew because I'm a visual person, and like I tend to remember things that I see. So from the very beginning of the group, which I am not one of the founding I'm one of the founding members, but I'm not one of the founders. And so I would go and I would remember like the titles of things that we talked about, because we would always talk about more than just whatever we were supposed to have read. And so I would write things down, and it just sort of organically grew. And now I do like whole entire spreads in my little like not a bullet journal, but it's kind of like bullet journaling. I get my washi tape out and I use my colored markers. I'll have to bring it in and show it to you guys one day. But I became the scribe because I was taking the notes and everybody else was like, oh, well, since you're taking notes, I don't have to take the notes. So, but yeah, so I put together, I did it last year too, I think. But I mean, we all give input. So I'm not going to be like, I put it all together. It's all me. No, no, no. We would talk about it in our little chat or in our meeting. And then I would put it together and be like, what do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of this? What do you guys think of this? And then I put the final thing together. And I think I released it right at June 1st. And we do it for the summer. But honestly, like towards the end of the summer, we're like, I've done this or I've done this or whatever. But it's not competitive. I mean, the prize is just the warmth in your heart at having accomplished something. You know, that's just, you know, what's going on with that. Like, I like it. It's fun. It kind of what it does is like certain squares might be things that we as different members of the group aren't necessarily reading. Like one of the squares is speculative fiction. Well, come to find out, a lot of us read speculative fiction. We just didn't realize we were reading speculative fiction because we didn't realize that whatever we were reading fell within that umbrella term. And like one of the squares is graphic novels. Well, you guys know I read them fairly often, but other members of the group don't necessarily read them. So there's that. One of the squares is a children's book. I have teenagers. I'm not reading children's books to them, like some of the other members are reading children's books with their children, which is excellent. Do that. If you have children, do that. So I have to kind of venture out and find a children's book to read to cover that square. And so it's like pushing each of us into, maybe not out of our comfort zone, but pushing us into something that we might not otherwise be reading. And I think that's a good thing, because I think that's how you broaden yourself, is you read something different, new, you wouldn't have normally have read, and you might discover that, hey, I really dig middle grade, or hey, there's this graphic novel series, I read one, and now I want to read all the rest of the 10 of them, or whatever. So that's kind of part of, I guess, what's going on with that. And so, you know, that's fun. But yeah, I might show you guys that card next week. Because when I was coming in here, I was thinking, what am I going to talk about? What am I going to talk about? and yeah, like that might be something I'd talk about next time. Okay, so I feel like I've rambled a bit, but I've talked about several things. Let me know in the comments if you have read any of the things that like the books that I talked about. Let me know in the comments if, like, you read one book at a time, or you read multiple books at a time, or like, do you have strong feelings about that? Because I know people who, when they find out that I read multiple books at a time, they get upset. And like, I find that interesting. I really find that, it doesn't upset me that they're upset. Like, okay, you're entitled to feel how you want to feel. But I find that like intriguing. Like, oh, well, why do you feel that way? So yeah, like, let's talk about that in the comments. As always, don't be a spoilery jerk in the comments, like, just, you know, in general. And I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.